Hello, everybody. Dr. F. Scott Field here, and I'd like to introduce you to our newest sponsor. The NPTE Final Frontier is the review course that I wish was around when I took the board exam. For those of you who know my story, it took me a handful of times to pass that exam, and quite frankly, I really wish I had an exam review course around, just like the NPTE Final Frontier. Check out their website, npteff.com, and use the code HET at checkout for 10% off to all of our listeners and fans. Hello, everybody. Dr. F. Scott Field here with another Teach Me Something Tuesday episode of the Healthcare Education Transformation Podcast. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about assessments. Now, we talked in prior episodes about grading and how grades are not that important. However, we have to come up with some way to check and see by testing or evaluating or assessing whether or not learning occurred and that students grasp the content that we're trying to purvey. It's one of those methods of there's no right or wrong answer per se. However, there has to be some sort of standardized rubric or assessment that we use to grade all of our students on some form of content and information grasping. So, did some form of learning occur? Did the methods that we use to teach help the information sink in and then allow the learners to take it to a higher level and implement that learning into new and adventurous ways of seeing the world or seeing content? There's a lot of ways that we can assess students, and I'm just going to give my top 5 or 10 or however many I can rattle off here. Testing is obviously one of the easiest ones, right? We can come up with a multiple choice test. We usually do that with some form of midterm or final in a large capacity. But I think it's also important to look at smaller, non-critical or non-heavy quizzes or low stakes quizzes throughout the semester as well. Yes, the midterm and the final are big, comprehensive type exams, but it's good to have little quizzes throughout as well so that you can practice the knowledge and have a much lower stakes attempt at showing that you grasp the content and that you understand what was taught. The next form I like to use is journal articles or research articles and having some form of reading around those, especially if we're going to look toward evidence-based learning and evidence-based practice. It's important to look ahead and see what's coming down the pipeline as far as research is concerned. It's important to try to keep relatively recent and up to date with research and journal articles. I like to give some of those on occasion so that people are looking at good research and what's being done out there. Another big assessment form that we can use is a portfolio, and I love a portfolio. The problem is they're pretty big, they're cumbersome, they're hard to grade. There's a lot of proportions to it. There's a lot of aspects usually to a portfolio. It requires the student to keep on top of it, usually throughout the entire semester. But I love using portfolios, and I do that in my geriatrics course. It's a good way to do some in-class learning and quizzes or assignments, and then have them turned in as a portion of the portfolio. It's a great place to do a lot of outside assignments outside of the classroom, whether it be volunteering and service-based learning, which again is a specialty of mine and an area in which I did my dissertation. It's a great way to maybe incorporate a little bit of interprofessional education, IPE, right? If you can get together with other groups. And it's a good way to just do some self-assessment and self-learning for students. Really go out there, take initiative, find the things that you need to do, almost like a search, right? Like we're out there on a scavenger hunt trying to find pieces and portions of the assignment that we can turn in and turn into our portfolio. I love using that as an assessment tool. We can do peer assessments, right? We can do little quizzes or assignments or just little tiny work within our small class and have our peers evaluate us. We can have students asking each other questions and how did you get to this and how did you get to that? Took some notes on your technique and here's what feedback. Here's what I saw. We do that as professors and faculty. We get peer evaluated on occasion and it helps give us helpful feedback. The key with peer evaluating is, again, it's not pointing fingers or showing gaps or holes in your knowledge base and your theories and showing that you did things wrong. It's just looking at it through different ways. It's giving helpful and constructive feedback. And so peer assessments can be helpful and useful if done properly and done with an open mind on both ends, both sides, both the grader and the assignment person who turned in the assignment. And then last but not least is group work and group projects. I like using these as well because I like the teamwork aspect of things. I think teamwork, whether you played sports growing up or not, teamwork is super important. And you'll see that a lot more within healthcare nowadays as well. So doing group projects and group work, gives you a little bit of a sense of responsibility. You have to step up and do your portion of the group work. It helps you interact and have those chances and opportunities to teach and learn from other people. The only downside is if somebody doesn't step up and do their group work, it can create a little bit of resentment of the group toward the individual not doing the work. But overall, I think group projects are a good way to assess if some of the learning was truly grasped and done appropriately. Again, if you're students, it's a good self assessment. But there's a bunch of different ways to go about assessments and realize that if we push the boundaries a little and we try things out and we shake things up, you're probably going to get a lot better results as far as the question, answering the question, did learning occur at the end of the semester? And I think realistically, that's what we're looking for. The midterm and the final, great. Yeah, those are tests and they give grades and outputs. And again, you have to write good questions for those in order to have good results and find out if what you were teaching really got absorbed. So that's a little bit on the professor side of things. But overall, I think shaking it up and putting in a bunch of different types of assessments shifts the way that we have to learn and the way that we have to take information in and then mix it around and kind of demonstrate that we got it and we understood it. Keep in mind, whether you're a student or a professor, that assessments are key, and there's a lot of different ways to do them. Try to help with creating what were different and new and fresh assessments, and think of ways that you can do self assessments as well. Hope that was helpful, and we'll see you on the next one.